Show Me What I'm Looking For. Written by Hey Pretty. Read by Arashi. All she wants is to cry, or scream, or run away. Overwhelmed and exhausted beyond belief, she can't decide which one, and she never even considers that she could do all three. The sting in her eyes is persistent. She rubs at them with her palms. The lump in her throat grew larger. Reaching to pour another glass of water, she realizes the pitcher on her desk is empty. Head in her hands, she groans. There's a knock at the door. Your Majesty? Her groan grows louder. Sedith. It's not that she isn't particularly fond of him. Much to the contrary, in fact. They've grown quite close in recent months, what with the restoration efforts and appeasing the masses through dodged diplomacy and magnanimity. His presence always puts her at ease, a reminder she did not have to face anything alone. Whenever he walked into the room, she would immediately relax, and felt suddenly reassured that everything would be okay. Regardless of how valuable she found his presence, at the present moment, she desired his absence. You can't cry when Sedith won't let you. She lifts her head and waves a hand to permit him entrance. It's silly, really, that he reports to her now, technically. He's been there longer, and he's older, and he's just Sedith. He handles anything and everything. She wonders what he can't do. He lingers in the doorway, brows furrowed, a rare look of concern etched into his features. Why does he hesitate? She's never known Sedith to appear timid. Byleth wipes at her face and finds it wet. So she did end up crying. She wonders when her mind made itself up for her. She makes another startling realization. Sedith just caught her eye. No wonder he's careful on his approach into her office. What is it? Even she winces at her brusque tone. Or is that her headache? He bows his head upon entering. I only came to drop off these, and perhaps... She immediately waves him off and tells them to drop them over there with the others, effectively cutting him off. Eyes closed and head in her hands once more, waiting for him to leave. She misses the slight frown and the way he drags his eyes away from her, disappointed. With a sigh, he steps forward quietly to set the papers on her desk. As he does, she catches him not so discreetly assessing her. Is there anything else? Her patience is paper-thin, desperate for him to leave so she can make sure to lock the door this time before she cries again. No, he answers softly. He pulls his hand away along with his gaze. Then you're dismissed. Very well. With another bow of his head, he leaves much the same way he entered, with lingering concern and a certain timidity. Byleth doesn't bother to dwell in it. She shoots up from her seat and rounds her desk to shut the door behind him, flipping the lock fast. On the other side, her poor advisor winces and looks back over his shoulders. Later that evening, Byleth sits under the clear night sky on the third-floor terrace, searching the stars. They make her miss her father, and all their travels together, and nights spent around a campfire, nights spent with comrades, laughing and singing, and spinning tales and sometimes getting drunk. But up here, she sits alone, away from the warmth and glow, and much too quiet. What would you think of all this, Dad? Me, in a white dress with flowers in my hair, leading a nation. I bet you'd hardly recognize me. I don't even recognize me. She picks at the aforementioned white dress as tears begin to fall, discoloring the pure white fabric where they land. She wishes he was still here. He would know what to do. She feels so lost, so alone. What had her life even become at this point? Did it mean anything to her? Is this even what she wanted? From day one, she was thrust into different roles. Not that she didn't enjoy or get some sense of fulfillment from any of them, but none of them had been her choice. She had just shown up and was there for everyone to pin their hopes and dreams on, their goals and aspirations, and sometimes even their affections. She sighs. What about her hopes and dreams? Her goals and aspirations? What about her affections? There was one person that seemed to care for what she wanted, who always asked, acknowledged her autonomy. The one person who had tried to get to know her from the very beginning, even if the reason had been his mistrust in her. She remembers the first time Sedith called her to his office to learn more about her past. He had been frustrated by her vague answers, imploring her to be more confident and clear. She felt embarrassed that she couldn't answer such simple questions. She had never thought much about them before. How was she supposed to know that wasn't normal? But then she became defensive when Sedith seemed to want to blame her dad for her inability to answer such simple questions. She loved her dad and appreciated all he had done for her. How dare this rude man criticize him right in front of her? But she didn't know what she felt when Sedith seemed to pity her for the way she was raised, being left in the dark and knowing nothing about herself. It was akin to anger, but she didn't like that, because why would she be angry at her father? Was she angry at her father? He had said he wanted to talk to her after their next mission, that it was important, but they never got the chance. Byleth chokes back a sob just as a voice calls out to her. Startled, she turns around and hastily wipes at her eyes. Sedith. Once again, he wavers just at the threshold, hesitant and unsure. I'm sorry for earlier. The words sound feeble and pathetic, but she means them. She wants him to stay. He comes closer, and this time, she doesn't hide. She bares her face to him, tears and splotchiness included. Watching him walk towards her, she feels comforted already. Sedith to the rescue, like always. Byleth never thought she would ever need to be rescued. As skilled as she was, she could obviously fend for herself. But she was learning that there were some things she couldn't save herself from. When Sedith finally sits down beside her, his shoulders brush against hers. Her entire body warms at the contact, and she finds herself needing to take a deep breath. He turns to her and offers her a handkerchief. Is there anything I can do to help? His voice is low, soft, soothing. She accepts the elegant piece of cloth with a laugh. Just keep putting up with me, I guess. She dabs at her eyes and wipes her nose. She's overcome by the scent of him, so comforting and familiar. It reminds her of her mercenary days, traveling on the open road under a clear blue sky, passing by a field of wildflowers while a fresh spring breeze plays with her hair and the sun kisses her face. She could inhale him forever. I do not think putting up with you is what I would call it. A smile teases her from the corner of his lips. What would you call it? Sedith swallows and looks away, caught off guard by the question and at a loss for words. He takes a breath, like he's found the right ones, but then shuts his mouth again, eyes everywhere but on her, and cheeks a lovely shade of pink. That wasn't the response she expected. It intrigues her. Sedith? He looks up at the night sky as if to offer up a prayer. But then she sees him gripping the edge of the bench on either side of him, as if to summon some resolve. When he looks back, his eyes shine just like the stars. Is it not obvious? His voice is soft, yet able to knock the wind from her. What do you mean? He breathes a laugh. You asked the same thing last time. Last time? Sedith always talked in circles, implying vague notions and teasing at things that Byleth could barely comprehend. Have you forgotten already? I will never abandon or betray you. I will always be by your side. Byleth's eyes widened. There was no way she could ever forget that conversation. How many nights did she lay awake afterward trying to puzzle it all out? Perhaps it is that I find you so fascinating that I cannot bring myself to leave your side. I still do not know what you meant by all that. His voice trembles as he tells her, but you do know. He leans closer and brushes his knuckles along her cheek. You have to know, he whispers. The sky tilts and Byleth forgets how to breathe. Truth is, he was right. She did know, but she felt foolish thinking that was what he meant, that he could ever have any feelings for her like that his face would ever be so close to hers as it was now. But his lips chased away all her doubts. His kiss is soft and simple, treading lightly until he can be sure. He pulls away only enough to catch her eye, casting a final plea. Tell me you know now. His breath across her lips feels like a breath across her entire body, warm and inviting as it is. It causes her to shiver. Her hand shakes as it travels to the back of his head and tangles in his hair before she crushes her lips to his. An arm immediately wraps around her waist and pulls her closer with a satisfied hum. A smile crosses her lips and spreads onto his. His hand goes up to cup her cheek as he tilts his head to find more of what he's looking for. A warmth coils in her stomach as his tongue slides past her lips, searching her soft and slow. She responds in kind, arching into him and wrapping her arms around his neck. Sedith? She breathes as he kisses along her jawline. Yes. Yes? His breath tickles her ear, and she giggles. She hardly recognizes him when he pulls away, face flushed and smiling, eyes shining as he moves some of her hair behind her ear. He looks ridiculously happy, until worry flashes in his eyes. Was that too much? Byleth laughs and touches his cheek. No, not at all. In fact, her fingers brush down and over his lips. Her eyes linger there as she bites her own lip. I doubt I could ever get enough. Sedith sucks in a breath. He takes her hand in his and brushes his lips across her knuckles. He then rests his forehead against hers, still holding on to her hand. I imagine that to be a good thing, then? He rasps out. It makes the warmth coiled in her stomach stretch and spread throughout her body, making her blush. Why is that? His eyes jump to hers. Because we have centuries ahead of us.